Hello and welcome to this all-new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, Monica Moore, and we have an action-packed episode for you tonight with our fall preview. We're going to be talking football, we're going to be talking cross-country, we're going to be talking volleyball. Two very special guests, first Coach Mark Bendorf from Robinson Secondary School and Bill Renner from West Springfield. But before we get into all that, we want to thank the folks that help make this show possible, our friends and teammates at CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs. 703-978-0257. All right, and now I want to welcome the guys that are in the studio with me. First of all, we have Wynn Ellington. Many of you are very familiar with him for all the good work that he does, broadcasting basketball and football for us. And then Dave Buchenfeld from the Fairfax Times, one of our regulars. And Dave, as always, you always come in with good news and notes for us. So what do you have for us tonight?
A couple football-related news and notes to start off with. Sean Glennon, former quarterback at Westfield High School, now down at Virginia Tech, has been named the starting QB for the Hokies this year. He had split time last year with Tyrod Taylor, but Taylor is being redshirted for this season, so Glennon has taken over once again. Peter Lalick, the former West Springfield quarterback, is likely to be named the starter for the University of Virginia. They have their big opener on Saturday against USC. And Mike Glennon, Sean's little brother, who led Westfield to a state title last year, is being redshirted at NC State. They have a different redshirt freshman they're going to start this year. Glennon will try to make the team or make the position next year. And also want to give a shout out to our local Olympians. Carol Lawson won a gold medal with the women's basketball team, and Justin Spring from Burke won a bronze medal with the men's gymnastics team.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much, Dave. And pretty soon we're going to have a very special guest on the phone, Mark Bendorf. But before we get to that, and actually, oh no, I thought I was getting the signal that he's on the phone, but he's not there yet. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Concorde District. Of course, the perennial powerhouse Concorde District. Since 2000, they have had a team in the state title game, 5 state championships in the past 8 years. This is what it looked like at the end of last season. So Westfield, of course, on top, followed by Chantilly, Oakton, Centerville, Herndon, Robinson, and Fairfax. And of course, guys, Westfield had that storybook season, becoming the only team in the state of Virginia to ever go 15-0. They got the state championship, but they lost 48 players to graduation. So what's the lay of the land going to look like this season in the Concorde District?
Well, it's going to be a little tough for them to overcome that. But one thing to remember is all year last year in practice, the players that are going to be playing this year are playing against the best players in the state. So, you got the backup QB, but he was learning from the best in the state with Mike Glennon. All their reserves from last year are going to be taking on the starting roles. They do have some linemen coming back, so their offensive line looks pretty good. It's obviously, they won't be the same team. Nobody could be, graduating 48 seniors and 18 starters, but I think they'll be all right with Coach Verbanik. He always seems to have a winner out there. So,
who else are you liking in the Concorde District, Wynn?
I really like Oakton. A lot has been said about them. They returned 18 starters. I remember watching their game against Robinson last year when they really sort of dominated that game. It was just such an impressive win, especially in the second half. And a lot of the key players in that victory were underclassmen. Linebacker Jack Tyler, quarterback Chris Coyer, and running back Trey Watts. A lot of contributions in that big victory over Robinson last year. And, they just, experience says a lot, and I like Oakton in that sense.
Well, and Chantilly is another team that I'm definitely looking at. Of course, they've got Torian Pace back. They did lose their quarterback, and that's a question as to how the quarterback situation is going to go for them. But they've got Pace, they've got Kevin McGrath, both at their running back positions, a couple of strong defensive backs coming back for them. So I think Chantilly might be a team that we should keep our eyes on in the Concorde District as well. And looking at the bottom of the district of the rankings for last year, any other teams in there that you guys think might have some upsets, might be some teams that really shock some other people in the district?
Well, talking about Robinson, I don't know if it would be a shock if they were there in the end. Had a little bit of a struggle last year, but then made a big run in the playoffs, knocked off defending region champion Chantilly in the first round of the playoffs, and almost beat West Springfield in the semifinals, lost on a last-second field goal by Tyler Bittenkurt. But Coach Bendorf always has those guys ready to play. Seems like they're never rebuilding, they're always reloading is what they say over there. And with Timmy Meyer coming back under center with Alex Murray and Winton Fox in the backfield, they'll definitely be strong again. Centerville, seems like everybody always says this is the year that Centerville is going to be good, and then they tend to underachieve. But, second-year coach Jerry Pannoni, he's got some good guys coming back. Luke Blanco on the line is huge. They should be decent again. Herndon, another second-year coach, Joe Schaefer. They get a few guys coming back, could make some noise. And Fairfax, you hate to pick on Fairfax. Only one more year in the Concorde District, thankfully for those guys, before they move over to Liberty. Probably going to be a struggle for them again. Didn't win a Concorde District game last year, so hopefully they can get one on the board this season.
Absolutely. One of the big stories out of the Concorde District is, of course, the loss of a couple of big-name quarterbacks from last season. Of course, Mike Glennon has graduated, moved on to NC State, and taking over the responsibilities for him is Danny Finyak. And then over at Chantilly, Austin Decker, now at Virginia Tech. So Roger Strittmatter and Michael Fries will be getting some work there at quarterback. So talking a little bit about these guys. Danny Finyak, for one, he was the quarterback on their JV team last year. Guys, any thoughts about how he'll step into that role at Westfield?
I think he'll do a good job stepping into the role. I mean, he's got, big shoes to fill, obviously. From what I understand, he was tutored by both Glennon brothers, and he kind of has the same physical structure that they do. 6'4", 175 pounds, tall guy. But it's just a matter of him learning the position and then being able to execute. But, a lot of, new starters with him also, so he's not going to be the only one learning a new position. They are, not really learning a new position, but just being able to fulfill his responsibilities. But no, I think he definitely has potential. Westfield just, they reload at quarterback like they do at, many of the other positions.
Absolutely. And then moving on to Chantilly, of course, Roger Strittmatter came over from Paul VI last year and will be stepping in. He's the #1 choice for them. Also, Michael Fries could have some of the responsibilities. But so Strittmatter, any thoughts about him, Dave, and how he'll step into that role at Chantilly?
Well, the last 2 years they've had Nate Warwick and Austin Decker, two very good option quarterbacks. They like to run a lot. As long as they can hand off to Torian Pace, I think they'll do fine. They got a great running game. They like to pound the ball against the opposition. Yeah, one of them will step up, but again, with Pace in the background and Isaac Sign on the line, big lineman for them, they should do all right.
Well, and Mike Lawley has said that he really is pleased with how Strittmatter is playing and that he's really smart. He's picking up everything really quickly, and so they're hoping to see some big things out of him. But certainly, so those are the quarterback situations for Westfield and Chantilly, but lots of players to watch in the Concorde District in addition to those guys. So, why don't you take us through some of the other big-name players to watch in the Concorde?
We've alluded to some of these players already, but here are some of the key players you'll see in the Concorde District this season. Luke Bowanko from Centerville. Centerville always known for their offensive line, the big, rugged, physical type. He's committed to UVA. He's about 6'5", 270 pounds. And Centerville also has another good offensive lineman, Mike Upham. Bowanko is heading that, but the interior line is the strength for Centerville this year. Jack Tyler from Oakton. He is the returning leading tackler from last year. He's kind of got that old school linebacker type, a big physical presence in the middle, kind of like an old Jack Lambert from the Pittsburgh Steelers, like 6'2", 220 pounds. He just kind of roams the field sideline to sideline, and he's good at penetrating into the backfield and making tackles for losses too. Then you see Tyler Barfield. He's one of the few returnees for Westfield, 6'2", 280, all-region last year. Punter Grant Bowden did not have to punt much, only 15 times, but he averaged a solid 35 yards. Pretty impressive for high school. And Chantilly, kind of like Centerville, always big physical lineman, known for that. Now they got Torian Pace carrying the load for him, but they're depending on Andrew Crawford, the big tackle, to open up those holes for Torian Pace.
Absolutely, and definitely one guy on that list that's a standout, Tyler Barfield. He's getting a lot of interest from some ACC schools, and another kid on that team that Coach Verbanek is really excited about is Tyler Delph. He thinks he might get some interest before it's all said and done. So those are a couple from the Concorde District. Dave, do you have some other ones for us?
Yeah, we got some more guys to look at. Already talked about Torian Pace from Chantilly, arguably the best running back coming back in the entire region. Had over 1,100 yards last year. And like I said, he's got Isaac Sign opening the holes for him on the offensive line. You move over to Oakton. Chris Coyer split time at QB last year with Ryan Harris. Hasn't been said if one will take the full-time job or if Coach Thompson's going to keep splitting the time between them, but it seemed to work okay for them last year. And they'll be handing off to Trey Watts in the backfield. He's one of the best running backs around as well. Had 506 rushing yards last year and also caught 168 receiving yards out of the backfield. Now, we already mentioned the guys that Robinson has coming back. Timmy Meyer at QB. It's his third year starting at the quarterback position. He'll be handing off a lot to Alex Murray, senior tailback. He had over 900 yards rushing last year. As you can see, there are multiple games with 100 yards per game, so they should be all right too.
Well, the one on the list I'm really excited about is Torian Pace. I think we've got some really exciting things in store for us from him, and he actually just got an offer from Boston College, so that's one offer that he's gotten. Lots of other schools are looking at him, and during the offseason, he actually decided not to play basketball last year because he wanted to really focus on football and that conditioning, and Mike Lawley said that's really paid off, and he just really understands the game a lot better, and they think he can play a lot more positions this year, so they're really excited about him. So.
Yeah, and like I was saying, they like to pound the ball anyways. Coach Lawley likes to run the ball down the opposition's throat, and with two inexperienced quarterbacks there, he'll be inclined to run it even more. So I think Torian's going to get a lot of touches this year.
All right, guys. Well, now it's time for the big question. So who do you think is going to win the Concorde District win?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to stay with it. The Oakton Cougars will win it. They finished 500 last year, 5-5, but as I mentioned, returning 18 starters. We've talked about a few of the key ones: Trey Watts, Chris Coyer, Jack Tyler, and then pretty much everybody on both the offensive and defensive line. 5-5 wasn't a great record. They certainly have a lot of improvement to make in order to win the district. But I just like Oakton. They tend to, they're kind of a cyclical team. And I remember a few years ago when they won that state championship, those players were just, the seniors now were just freshmen this year, and they've paid their dues, and I just have a good sense, a good feel about them.
How about you, Dave?
Well, I tend to agree with Wynn. It was actually a bit of a disappointing season for the Cougars last year. Started off in the showdown with Madison, first game of the year, lost to them for the first time in a while, and it just kind of put them in a tailspin for the rest of the year. But a lot of guys coming back, Jack Tyler leading the defense. It really is their district to lose, but really anybody could win the district. You look at Robinson, could surprise people if they carry the momentum over from last year. Chantilly obviously has the guys in Westfield. I wouldn't count them out until somebody knocks them off.
Well, guys, I hate to say this, but I completely agree with both of you. I think that Oakton is going to be the team to beat this year with all of the returning players and the fact that I do feel like they have a chip on their shoulder after last year's 5-5 season. And as you said, when they really have struggled since that 2005 championship, and so I think they're looking to make another big run for the Concorde District title. All right, so do we have someone on the phone for us? No, we do not, unfortunately. So we are going to move on and talk about the Patriot District, another one of the big districts in the region, taking a look at how the standings were last year. West Springfield up on the top. They had such a great season last year, certainly poised to do so again this year, followed by Lake Braddock, South County, West Potomac, T.C. Williams, Annandale, Lee, and then Hayfield there on the bottom. And of course, guys, a lot of people in the region talking about West Springfield. People really think Division VI, they are the team to beat. But after West Springfield, what are your thoughts about how this Patriot District just might shake out?
Well, it'll be interesting to watch. They had 5 different teams that made the playoffs from the Patriot District last year, so really a lot of teams could contend for the title, but it's obviously West Springfield's district to lose. 16 starters coming back, 8 on defense, 8 on offense. Talk about Bryn Renner, Brandon Bailey, all the guys on offense. They averaged over 35 points a game last season. Just one of the best offenses, other than Westfield, that we've seen in a long time. The key for them really is going to be their defense. That's really been the big question mark for them all the time. They can score a lot of points, but can they stop the opposition? They lost their entire secondary from last year, have pretty much the whole line and linebacking core coming back, though. Coach Renner is enthusiastic and optimistic, but it remains to be seen. They didn't fare too well against Oakton in the scrimmage that they had about a week ago. Couldn't really stop them very well, but he thinks it's the second year for a lot of them in the system that they're running over there. He thinks that he's actually said the defense might be the story of the season for them this year, and it's really going to have to be if they want to get farther than they did last year.
Absolutely. Wynn, what are your thoughts about how the Patriot might shake out?
Well, we talk a lot about how tough the Concorde District is, but I think, maybe we don't give the Patriot District enough credit. We've seen a lot of improvement recently from some of their teams. You look again at West Springfield at 10-3. I mean, we've seen their record has gradually improved over the last few years, and, even higher expectations this year with Bryn Renner and, the rest of cast of the Stars coming back. Lake Braddock, Coach Jim Poitras has only been there a few years, and, they were, we're only winning 1 and 2 games before he got there and in his first season. And, their JV program is really improving as well. Pete Bendorf starting the program at South County. We've seen, they're solid. They beat West Springfield last year. West Potomac, under Coach Eric Henderson, they're getting much better. So you just, we talk a lot about the Concorde District, as I just mentioned, but, the Patriot District is kind of becoming a survival of the fittest as well. So it's just going to be exciting all the way around.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think the Patriot District is certainly one to keep your eyes on this year because, as you said, South County has really been coming along. Pete Bendorf, such a great coach. They have a quarterback battle going on over there between Aaron Andrews and Evan Beal, trying to see who's going to get the starting position there. Evan Beal, of course, his brother Jesse Beal, a lot of people in the region might remember him. He played baseball for South County and just got drafted in the 13th round of Major League Baseball draft. So if it's hereditary, then certainly Evan Beal probably has an arm on him. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Of course, West Potomac, a team to keep your eyes on. And so lots of great teams in the Patriot District. Lake Braddock, of course, did lose a ton of players from last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they rebuild and who the players are that are going to really make names for themselves this year. But all right, so let's take a look at some of our players to watch from the Patriot District. And at the top of the list, guys, Bren Renner. I mean, you can't say enough good things about this kid. We see his stats from last year. They're 2,749 yards, 32 touchdowns. That doesn't even count the touchdowns that he rushed in himself. I think I remember that he was responsible for 74% of their scoring or something in one way or another. So it's really an impressive year for him. And guys, how do you think the rest of these players to watch are going to shape up this year?
Well, you look at the list. At the top of it is, the other West Springfield stars, the other big name players for them, putting those points on the board. Brandon Bailey, Andy Stallings, Tucker Tobin, Eric Dorsey, and then, Eric Dorsey with South County. He's the speedster from South County. And then, looking at some of the other players in the Patriot District, Anton McCallum, 2-year starter for Hayfield, Annandale with Kason Kynes, returning quarterback, and Shane Doty as well for Annandale. But, taking a look at these players, Brandon Bailey, 1,400 rushing yards. We always talk about the passing attack that West Springfield has, but 1,400 rushing yards, he really gives them a balanced attack. Andy Stallings, he's Renner's main target. He's really good at finding that open space in there. He's kind of deceptive as he, runs his pattern. Tucker Tobin, he's about 6'4". He's a big target for Renner. He kind of reminds me of Easy Ed McCaffrey for the Denver Broncos. Eric Dorsey, he's a short guy. Last year South County had the Pennington brothers, and then they had one on defense, one on offense, and of course they lose Pennington, but they still got Eric Dorsey back. Not a lot of other starters returning back for South County, but Dorsey is somebody to watch. Also dangerous in returning punts and kickoffs. Hayfield, they're still trying to climb up that hill, and with a 2-year starting quarterback, Anton McCallum, he'll help them do that. He also has his main target coming back, Najrul Islam. They were one of the bright spots for the Hawks last year, so hopefully they'll be able to maximize that opportunity. Annandale, led by Coach Dick Adams. Quarterback Kason Kynes, he put up some impressive statistics, over 1,000 passing yards and 15 touchdowns. He's also a very mobile quarterback, and then helping give the Adams some balance on the other side of the ball, big Shane Doty, an all-region second team last year. He's about 6'4", 270 pounds. A few other players we don't have on the graphic that I think deserve mentioning. The West Springfield defense had a lot of improvement from last year, and one of the reasons was a middle linebacker. He was just a sophomore last year, Joey DeSantis. He's about 5'11", 220 pounds, but he's a run plugger. He's a stopper right there in the middle. And then Lake Braddock, there's high hopes for their new quarterback, Ryan Curtis. They graduated Shane Haley, who's going to play baseball at UVA, I believe, but this Ryan Curtis, he's considered to have a strong arm and very mobile as well. So, a lot of players to look out for in the Patriot District.
Another team that not a lot of people are talking about, were outraged over last year, was the Lee Lancers. Made the playoffs last season with only 2 regular season wins, but they played the likes of Westfield, and all the top teams got the power points needed to make it into the playoffs. They only have 11 starters coming back, lost a lot of their team, but they gained a lot of good experience last year for making that playoff run. You get a new quarterback, Greg Lopez, and new running back, Jasmine Williams, who is the younger brother of Pierre Williams, who was their starting running back last year. But Coach Rob Everett will have them doing well again this season.
Well, guys, I think you really hit the nail on the head with one of the big questions in the Patriot District. It's clearly going to be defense for West Springfield, so it will be very interesting to see who steps up there. And another team I'm really excited about is Annandale. Their quarterback, Kason Kynes, Wynn talked a little bit about him. He's a 3-star athlete, so people in the region may know him from basketball. They may know him from lacrosse. He has 3 older brothers who all played college football, so it runs in the family there as well for that Annandale team. And Dick Adams, one unfortunate note, his son Rick Adams, who is on the team, has had a shoulder injury and he's out for the whole season. He's also a wrestler, and so they're hoping that he'll get back in time for wrestling season, but he's only a junior, so he will get back for another year.
Yeah, and it was a pretty disappointing season for Annandale last year. They're perennially in the playoffs, but missed it the last season. Only won 2 games in the district, but you can be sure that Dick Adams will have them ready to go this year.
All right, guys. Well, you knew it was coming. So, and this one, maybe it's a closed question, but so Wynn, who you got for the Patriot District?
Well, no great mystery here, but I'm going to go with the West Springfield Spartans. I'm not sure they're going to get out of the district unscathed, but I'm still going to, pick them to win it. You can't count out Bryn Renner and then the numerous starters that they are returning. Both sides of the ball. I think the defense will continue to show improvement as well, but they just have that big play capability, and I'm not gonna be a rebel here. I'm gonna go with the West Springfield Spartans.
All right. Well, Dave, are you going to be a rebel?
Definitely not. It's all about West Springfield and Patriot District this year. You talk about Danny Feniak learning from the best in Mike Lennon. Then you got Bryn Renner, who learned from Peter Lawlick, who's now playing down at UVA. He caught passes from Lawlick as a wide receiver as a sophomore, stepped into the QB role last year as a junior. Like we said, passed for over 2,700 yards, 32 touchdown passes, only 7 interceptions, also rushed for 10 touchdowns. It's just phenomenal. Led one of the highest scoring offenses ever around this parts. He's just going to be even better with all the offensive weapons that they have coming back. Even though they might not be as good on defense like they usually aren't, but with that offense, they're going to beat 9 teams out of 10, just outscoring them like that. So.
Well, guys, I completely agree with you. I think the team to beat is West Springfield. 4 of our players to watch were from West Springfield, and certainly, as we said, they have some defensive players that could step up, and so they are the team to beat. It's going to be interesting to see how the Patriot District shapes up and whether anybody can take down that West Springfield team. All right, well, now we are going to take a minor break from football and go into one of my favorite segments of the show, as people who are fans of the show know, which is the Volleyball Report. As you all know, volleyball is one of my favorite sports in the region, and once again, we have an exciting season shaping up for us. So let's take a look at some of my players to watch. First of all, the ladies from the Concorde District. The Concorde District always strong in volleyball, starting out with Celine Alasamaka and Allie Darling from Centerville. Couple of young ladies from Chantilly, Samantha Reeves and Allison Williams. Fairfax's Teresa Harvey. Herndon's Steph Drahosel. Robinson's Susie Murach. And Westfield's Sammy Spees. Of course, everyone knew that Sammy was going to be on the list. So let me break down some of these players just a little more for you all. First of all, the girls from Centerville. They are absolutely sensational. I got to talk with head coach Ken Moser about them. They were, of course, on the Concorde District Tournament Championship team from last year. Both of them are outside hitters, and he told me the first thing he said was both of them spent so much time during the off-season working. They played on the Virginia Elite Volleyball Club team, and so they're coming back with a lot more experience. He loves the leadership he's seeing from both of them, and he really thinks that they're going to be key players in coming forward with their run through the Concorde District this year. But one team that's going to make it tough for them is Chantilly, and Samantha Reeves and Allison Williams are a big reason why. As sophomores last year, they got tons of playing time on that team that made it all the way to the Northern Region Final, and they're going to get helped out a lot by 2 of their teammates, the 2 setters on the team, Andrea Lente and Emily Wright, both setters on the Chantilly team. So all those young ladies, juniors, and we're going to see a lot more of them throughout their careers at Chantilly. All right, moving along to Teresa Harvey. Fairfax was a big story last year because they had that huge upset over Centerville, and one of the big reasons why was Teresa Harvey, along with her teammate Marilyn Pizer, who's now a sophomore. They're their 1-2 punch on the front line for Fairfax, and so I'm looking for big things out of those 2 young ladies. And if people in the region remember the name Teresa Harvey, it might be because she was on that state record-breaking relay team for Fairfax earlier this year. She's a swimmer as well as a volleyball player, very strong, looking for big things out of her. Now, Herndon lost a lot of players to graduation, including, of course, Megan Roth and Leslie Buckingham, two of their best. So one young lady that Coach Pat Smith is really hoping that is going to step up is Steph Drahosel. She's only a junior, and Pat Smith said to me that she has already shown a lot of improvement from last season, and they think that Steph will be the leader of that Herndon team that's going to be battling through a tough Concorde District. Robinson, of course, Susie Murat, she plays on that Virginia Elite Volleyball Club team with those young ladies from Centerville. They had a great experience this summer playing in nationals, and so all of that experience they're going to bring back to the Concorde District. And then finally, last but most certainly not least, is a young lady from Westfield who very well may be Northern Region Player of the Year. She's one of the top two that I think really could challenge for it, and that's Sammy Spees from Westfield. People in the region are very familiar with her because, of course, she has the distinction of being the only freshman to ever make Coach Jim Boer's varsity team. So she's been on the varsity team for quite some time. Her stats are unbelievable, and she's got a chip on her shoulder this year because Westfield, of course, won the Northern Region her freshman and sophomore years. They were knocked out in the first round last year, so she's looking to make a huge impact coming into this season. All right, so that's the Concorde District. Let's take a look at the other ladies on my list from the other districts. And starting out, of course, Logan Sebastian from Langley. And then two other young ladies from the Liberty District, Lily Vera and Sarah Norton. All right, then two sensational sophomores from the Patriot District, and everyone is in the Patriot District is talking about these two girls, Jessie Colden from Hayfield and Simone Otway from South County. And then finally, our National District representatives, Abby Voss from Stewart and Elise Bush from Yorktown. So let me break down these other districts for you because there's going to be some exciting volleyball in those districts as well. And starting off with Logan Sebastian, I think she could challenge Sammy for Northern Region Player of the Year. She recently committed to Delaware and, of course, was on that state final Langley-Saxon team that lost so many players. But Logan is coming back as an outside hitter. And people in the region probably remember her 4 straight jump serves to cap off the Northern Region final last year. She was absolutely sensational in that match. Yes, she was flanked by Lisa Scott and Megan Shiflett, two of the best from the region, but she's quite a leader and really can make a huge difference for her Langley club this year. Now, moving on to the players from Stonebridge, first, Lily Vera. Everyone in the region will tell you she's probably the top setter in the region. She was honorable mention All-State last year. She was All-Region. Unfortunately, this summer, she suffered an injury and broke her finger at a recruiting camp at UNC Pembroke. So she's injured right now, but I spoke with her on Monday, and she told me that she's going to the doctor today to get it x-rayed, and as soon as she gets the clearance, she's going to be back out there for her Stonebridge Bulldog Club. But taking over for her right now is Amanda Miller, so I'll add her in to my players to watch because she's the setter that's going to be backing up Lily Vera. Not a new role for Amanda because last year against Broad Run, when Lily rolled her ankle, Amanda stepped in and she was sensational. And also huge for the Bulldogs is going to be Sarah Norton, their other senior. She's a hitter for them. She's a big-time hitter. She's All-Region last year, and so she's going to be doing great things for Jill Racciatore's club. All right, so moving on, those two girls from the Patriot District, both sophomores. So you're going to see Jessie Colden and Simone Otway for a very long time. And Simone Otway, I talked with her coach, David Prawl, about her over at South County, and the first thing he told me is that she can touch 10'3". So she's got quite a vertical on her. She's already being looked at by a number of Division I schools, only a sophomore. And so those two ladies battling it out in the Patriot District for the next 3 years is going to be pretty exciting. And then closing out with the girls from the National District, Abby Voss from that Stewart team. They have a lot of seniors. She's one of the top ones on that team. She spent a lot of time working over the summer as well. She's very aggressive at the net as both a hitter and a blocker, so is going to be the leader for that Jeb Stewart team. And then finally closing out, Elise Bush. She was the only player from the National District last year to make the All-Region team. She's back for Yorktown and is definitely a player that you should keep your eyes on. All right, so in addition to laying out my top players, I have the top matchups in the districts that you're going to want to keep your eyes on. The National District, Stewart and Yorktown battling it out is the game to see. In the Patriot District, Hayfield and South County. In the Liberty District, Langley and Stonebridge. And then finally, the Concorde, always a tough one to pick, but if I just have to do it, I will leave it with Chantilly and Centerville. Okay, so just a little more volleyball knowledge and we will go back to football. So I have my top 5 rankings. This is my projection for how it's going to all end up. Starting off at the top, Chantilly, followed by Centerville, Stonebridge, Westfield, and closing out Langley. So let me explain myself a little bit in case people out there are already questioning me. So Chantilly, the only player that they lost off of their region final team last year was Vicky Chung. And I feel bad saying they only lost Vicky Chung because she is completely irreplaceable, an all-state libero. But they've got all of those sophomores back, and with all of that experience, I really think that Chantilly right now is the team to beat, followed closely by Centerville. They're such a deep team. They did lose Kelly Bruger, who is off at Auburn playing now, but they are really going to be great. And then Stonebridge, they were in my number 3 spot, with the caveat that that's with a healthy Lily Vera. So hopefully she'll be able to come back and help out her ball club, and they'll do some good things in the Liberty District and in the region. Westfield in the 4th place position. As I said, Sammy Spees has a little bit of a chip on her shoulder. She and her ball club really looking to rebound from what was kind of a disappointing season for them last year. They're looking to retake the region championship. And then finally, Langley. They, of course, did make it to the state final last year, led by Megan Shiflett, who's off at Penn State, Lisa Scott, who's now at Maryland. They only have 4 returning players, Logan Sebastian, Elise Richardson, Audrey Dotson, and Maddie Gray. But any team that's coached by Sue Shiflett is definitely going to be in the mix. So I am really looking forward to seeing Langley as well. All right, so that's volleyball for you guys. You had a little bit of a break now, so we're going to jump back into football. And I closed off talking about Langley and the Liberty District. So Dave, why don't you take us through what the Liberty District looked like at the end of last year?
It was all about Stonebridge last year. Only had 1 loss on the season to Robinson early in the year, finished 7-0 in the district, won the Division V state championship, first state championship for Coach Mickey Thompson. Madison finished behind them. Another frustrating season against Stonebridge for Madison, lost for the 5th straight time in 3 years to the Bulldogs. The previous 2 years had been knocked out of the playoffs by Stonebridge. Langley was in 3rd, then followed by Marshall, Woodson, South Lakes, McLean, and Jefferson was 0-7 in district play last season.
All right, guys. Well, Stonebridge, of course, is such a perennial powerhouse in the Liberty District. They're certainly going to be at the top on most people's rankings. But what do you think about the other teams in the Liberty District this year?
It's going to be a tough season for Madison, I think. They only have 6 starters returning from last year's squad. Coach Gordon Live always has a good team on the field, but with so many guys graduating last year, it'll be tough for them. They do have QB Will Clarkson coming back, so he'll be able to lead the offense, but they lost the likes of Harry Keys, Tucker Barstow, so many of their offensive weapons. They really need to beat Stonebridge, though, because they get some kind of mental block going. Like I said, the last 3 seasons, they're 0-5 against the Bulldogs, lost twice in the playoffs, so it'll be very good for their confidence if they can finally get a win against those guys.
Well, I believe Stonebridge is the clear favorite, but, you're talking about Madison, you never can count Coach Gordon Lieb's teams out. They always compete. They always play hard. They may not be, a lot of times their strength is usually more on the line than it is in the skill positions, but I think this year they return more skill players than they do linemen. But regardless, they always play hard. They got to get over that Stonebridge hump, as you just mentioned. I also really like Woodson. Coach Trey Taylor seems to have a really good team there. They return a lot of key players back this year, and they play very hard. I like running back Jake Sweeney. He ran for I believe over 1,000 yards last year. He's a big guy, 6'1", 230 pounds, and they also got some speed at wide receiver and a returning quarterback as well. But I really like Woodson. Langley, they have improved under Coach John Howerton. He has really built a strong program there. But I think Stonebridge, as I mentioned, is the clear favorite, but the Liberty District, for the majority of the other positions there, it's going to be kind of like what we see with the Concorde and the Patriot. It's just, anybody can beat anybody on any week, and a lot of the teams are very similar. It's always close games. A lot of times it's always low-scoring games. If you like defense, it seems, you got to like these Liberty District games. You really don't see too many bodies score any more than 3 touchdowns. And it seems like a lot of the Liberty District games we cover to is always in the rain. It's always just a mud bath of these Liberty District games. Little hard 17-14 game mud baths. You don't know who is going to win, and it's just going to be an exciting battle to see how it all shakes out.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Win, because I was going to say Langley too, and I was a little worried that I was going to get shot down by you guys.
Well, I think Langley might surprise some people. They got 12 starters coming back, and their offense is led by a couple of 3-year starters, QB Danny Pritchett and tight end Chris Sievers. So they should be pretty good offensively, and like Win said, always have the good defense out there as well. It's kind of a top-heavy district, though. You know, the top 5 teams have a good shot at winning. But you look at South Lakes, McLean, and Jefferson. South Lakes lost A.J. Price, who was their best player by far last year, and the other 2 programs are pretty much rebuilding as well. So it could be a tough year for those 3 teams, but any of the other 5 could beat any other team on any given night.
Well, guys, Stonebridge has gone 79-19 this decade. They have so much talent this year. So, who are a couple of players from Stonebridge that are really the standouts on a standout squad?
Well, we'll start out with the Thompson twins, led by the sons of head coach Mickey Thompson. We got quarterback Patrick Thompson there, then defensive lineman Zach Thompson, and then to the non-Thompsons, defensive line Brian Slade. The line really is, they're a balanced team, but this year, line really appears to be their strength. And then David Wang, he's a Virginia Tech, commitment. Another player that's key for him that I know Coach Mickey Thompson is high on is Jimmy Bradford. He plays on the defensive line. He doesn't quite have the size that, Thompson, Slay, and Wang have, but, I've heard Thompson say before that he is just as good as they are. He's just not as big. But going back into a little bit more of their abilities, Patrick Thompson, he has a ruptured tendon, so he's going to miss his first few games. And they got a transfer from Loudoun Valley who is expected to start for the first few games. I understand, though, that Patrick will still start on the defensive side of the ball. His brother Zach Thompson heading to Wake Forest. He's about 6'5". And then, as you see, Brian Slay also on the defense. He is committed to North Carolina State. And then, as I just mentioned, David Wang following his older brother to the Hokies, ready for some Beamer ball. One of the things that I really like about following high school football is it kind of gives you a glimpse of what you may expect on the college scene in 2 years. And this is, looking at these players for Stonebridge and where they're playing, it's making me think of opening weekend when they play West Springfield and you have these commits from Wake Forest and North Carolina State trying to tackle Bryn Renner from your North Carolina Tar Heels. And I think we will see quite an exciting matchup there. And, a few years from now, we could see deja vu occurring.
You look at the guys that Stonebridge lost last year, the Jaren Gaveas, Matt Irwin, Ryan Moody. I mean, they lost an all-star team, but they're still bringing back an all-star team. They just had that many good players on the team last year, and they're definitely favored to repeat as state champions. The caveat, if Patrick Thompson can come back from the ruptured tendon in his throwing hand, but from what I understand, he should be back in a few weeks, so only miss a couple of games. He'll be back for the nitty-gritty of the Liberty District play. They got 12 starters back, but even the guys that weren't starting last year probably could have started in a lot of other programs around the region, but they just had guys like Jaren Gavea standing in front of them. So they're definitely the favorites out there. Marshall's 6 starters back from their team. QB Harold Sweet is probably the biggest name on their squad. But there's a lot, Wynn was mentioning the Woodson guys. We got some more players to watch for you. Max Weisenegger, he's a wide receiver, defensive back, and also a kick returner for them. Does a little bit of everything for those guys. Was all district, made 11 touchdown catches for those guys last year. Sam Burt, one of their better defensive backs. They also have Jake Sweeney, who we've mentioned, the running back over at Woodson. And they got a transfer QB coming in this year, Connor Riley, who's going to take over the helm for those guys. Christian Underkoffer from Madison, one of the few returning starters that they have coming back. And Mike Howard, one of the few big names on the Jefferson squad. He's going to have a big year if they're going to win a game in Liberty District play this year.
So lots of talent coming back in the Liberty District. And again, I think you can't count out Nick Sham for Stonebridge. I mean, this guy, he played quarterback for Loudoun Valley, had 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he's got all that great talent around him. So I think for some teams it would be a huge disaster to lose Patrick Thompson for 6 weeks. But for Stonebridge, not going to be as big of a story for them, I don't think. And Mickey Thompson has said, too, that there is at least one Division I school who is looking at his son at linebacker, so it's going to be a nice change to get to see him play at that position, and they'll get to see what he looks like there. So, but, okay, guys, so maybe another obvious question, but Dave, who's going to win the Liberty District?
That's going to be Stonebridge. I mean, I don't see any way around it. They've just got so many good guys coming back. As good as I think Woodson can be this year and as good as Madison is perennially, I just don't see anybody touching Stonebridge this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they ran the table. I was very shocked last season when they lost that game early to Robinson. I think they were leading at halftime and then gave up a bunch of points in the third quarter to lose that game before running the rest of the table. But I could see them not losing the game on their way to a second straight state title for Mickey Thompson.
When do you also think they can go undefeated?
I do believe that they can go undefeated. That I'll buy into all the expectations for them. I don't think those expectations are false. I believe they're as good as what we've said. Going back to the Robinson game that Dave mentioned, Robinson beat them last year 41-14, which was a big that was quite an impressive win for Robinson. I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that Robinson won, but I'm surprised they won by that margin. And that Robinson-Stonebridge game, that is going to be very interesting. I believe that is going to be one
payback.
Will it be payback for Stonebridge, or how much is revenge going to be a motivation in that one? And will Robinson enter that game again just as hungry as they apparently were last year? So and Robinson is losing a lot of their linemen too. I know Robinson is having to replace a lot of linemen. So you got the experienced Stonebridge line going up against Robinson's new guys, and so you got that factor going in there. But then again, you never can count Coach Bendorf's teams out. You never know. They definitely have that killer instinct, whether they're freshmen, sophomores, or seniors. And I think that killer instinct was what allowed them to do what they did to Stonebridge last year. So, that's going to be fun.
I think Stonebridge's best game is their first game coming up Friday night, hosting West Springfield. They played each other, I think, the last 6 years in the first game of the season. This actually dates back to the years when Coach Renner was at Langley and Coach Thompson was at, I think, either Broad Run or one of those other Loudon schools. They started playing each other the first game of the season there and brought the rivalry over when they moved to Stonebridge and West Springfield. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where those two teams are, without Patrick Thompson and with the defensive issues that West Springfield usually has. And, talking to Coach Renner and Bryn before the season, they were saying this is a really good measuring stick for them to see just how good they are. They've actually had the lead at halftime against Stonebridge each of the last 3 seasons, only to lose the game. So they were up by a lot last year, but then I think Stonebridge scored something like 42 or 49 points in the third quarter to just blow it open in the second half. But I think West Springfield really thinks that they have a shot to knock them off this year with the offense that they have, but it's really going to come down to the defense for the Spartans.
Well, guys, I completely agree with you. I think it's Stonebridge in the Liberty District as well, so won't spend any more time on that. Let's move on now to the National District and see the lay of the land from last year. Why don't you take us through how the National District shook out last year?
Okay, this is the National District shakeout in 2007. No stranger at the top. The Thomas Edison Eagles finishing up at 10-3, followed by Mount Vernon at 6-5. The Yorktown Patriots, always a strong contender in the National District, over 4-2 in the district. Had some problems outside the district, going 5-6 overall. The Generals of Washington Lee finishing up just below 500 at 4-6, and then 3-3 in the district. Wakefield 2-8 overall, 2-4 in the district. The Falls Church Jaguars 3-7 overall. They got one district win for a record of 1-5, and then Jeb Stewart 0-10 there in the district, over 0-10 overall, and obviously then 0-6 in the district. And then some of the it's just Edison is just the perennial power in the National District. Coach Vaughn Lewis has really developed quite a program there. They're always known for their speed, and they're always an exciting team to watch. And Coach Lewis, he's really a great fellow too. I really enjoy meeting with him before the games. And Edison loses Ben Barber this year, but they have some other, they're in the reloading situation too. They don't rebuild, they just reload. And they always seem to have, superior talent to the other teams in the National District, but they do a good job of developing that talent too. Taking over at quarterback for the Eagles this year is actually Ben Barber's younger brother, Levi. Ben heading on to Virginia Tech, like a lot of the many key players are in this region. But Edison just, they are the Mac Daddy of the National District, and I think they'll probably get challenged a little bit, but I think they'll get through the district undefeated. Their big challenge is, they always have to play Stonebridge in the playoffs, in the Northern Region Championship for Division 5. And 2 years ago, they had that big win over Stonebridge, 31-17. They weren't able to repeat that, but I don't think we'll see any more surprises. I think history will continue to repeat itself with Edison meeting Stonebridge in the Division 5 championship. But some of the key players in the district this season, some of the other Edison Eagles besides Levi Barber, a lot of high expectations for him. I know Coach Lewis is very high on his ability, feels he's a very good passer, but Stephon Robertson, the middle linebacker, he is just a hitting machine. He is just, lightning quick. He's got that combination of power and size, and, he really laid the wood on some running backs last year in some of the games that we saw, especially in that South County game that we did early in the year. He was just a machine out there. I mean, I believe he's pretty, highly recruited. Whoever gets him is going to have one heck of a player. Angus Harper, the Eagles tailback. Edison always just has a stable of tailbacks there. Angus Harper did not get to contribute as much as he would have liked last year. He got injured in the third week, but he's got that breakaway ability that we've seen, from many of the Edison skilled players. As soon as he gets past that secondary, getting him a little bit of room to run, he gets past those linebackers and defensive backs, just lickety-split. Frank Figura. Edison's not all about the backs this year. They got some, they had to break in some new linemen last year. Figura is 6'4", 270. He'll be playing for Joe Pa at Penn State. Some of the other key players. Oh, Corey Washington. How could I forget Corey Washington? He is quite the playmaker. Coach Vaughn Lewis wants to work him in some at quarterback too. He was a standout defensive back last year. We saw him intercept 4 passes in the Madison playoff game, but he'll be working in a defensive back, wide receiver, and he's such a playmaker. Coach Lewis wants to work him in some at quarterback, but I believe he'll have to battle with Levi Barber for that, but we'll see who ends up starting for the Eagles this weekend. Kyle Toulouse from Yorktown. Let's look at some of the other key players. Coach Hansen for Yorktown wants to start him in seven different positions, but we don't know what that's going to be yet, but he's considered quite an athlete as well. Yorktown, as I mentioned, Coach Hansen I think he's the longest tenured coach in the Northern Region, and they always got quite a strong team there. They don't really ever have quite the speed that Edison has, but they'll be in the mix, and they could give Edison a run, led by Kyle Toulouse. Sam Jerima for the Falls Church Jaguars, quite impressive statistics from last year, and then Mount Vernon returning offensive lineman Brendan O'Clisham.
Well, speaking of Levi Barber, I don't cover the National District very much, but obviously I knew his older brother Ben, saw him play a few times. But they're saying Ben was thrown into the quarterback position because he was their playmaker. They just wanted the ball in his hands. But from what I understand, Levi actually has some better quarterbacking skills. He's actually played the position growing up, and has some better throwing skills than his brother did. Be interesting to see how he compares to Ben. Obviously, big shoes to fill, though.
That's exactly right. Vaughn Lewis has said that he's certainly better than Ben was at that stage of the game right now, at the age that he is. So they're looking for huge things out of him. And then Corey Washington, too, is on the table to be quarterbacking a little bit for Edison. Of course, last year he had a great play where the team fumbled the snap and he just ran it right in for a touchdown. So Vaughn Lewis says that Corey Washington's the playmaker. So mixing it up between the two of them might be an option for the Eagles this year. All right, so Dave, who's going to win the National District?
I think it could be either Edison or Yorktown, but I'd probably give the nod to Edison at this time.
When?
Surprise, surprise, the Edison Eagles. Another player to mention, Corey Washington's younger brother, Christian Washington, is supposed to be a strong contributor for the Eagles this year, and I believe he will also, have a big impact in the Eagles National District Championship.
All right, well, I'm going to agree with you guys once again. I think it's going to be Edison in the National District. They've been 23-1, I think, for the last few years, so it's going to be hard to pick anyone other than Edison. All right, so we've talked about the districts separately. Now let's take a look at our FSN Top 10. And Dave, run us through some of the ones we have listed up there.
Well, no surprise, Stonebridge is leading off at #1, defending Division 5 state champions there, have a lot of talent coming back. West Springfield made the region final in Division 6 last year before losing to Westfield, who went on to win the state title. There are the Westfield Bulldogs. I think it might be a little high for them up there, but until somebody knocks them off, they are the defending state champions and Northern Region champions. Another Concorde District powerhouse, Oakton, should rebound from a disappointing year last year and expect them to be around at the end. And Chantilly, talked a lot about Torian Pace. He'll be running down everybody's throats, and they should be there at the end as well.
All right, to round out the top 10, I just talked about Edison. There's really, I don't have anything else to add right now. Just a very talented team, the superior team in the National District, and that's where we have them, ranked number 6 there, and they should, very well deserved, I think for a preseason ranking. Robinson, the powerhouse Robinson Rams, they are having to replace a lot of players, but I think we'll see them rebound a little bit from this year. They had kind of a disappointing season last year in terms of their record, but I think you'll see them disappointing. I think they'll speed up from that, and they'll have quite the team. Talking about speed, they got an excellent player coming back in Winton Fox, who we didn't mention last year, earlier in the show at running back. West Potomac, that has been a program that has improved lately. They're led by quarterback Cole Walter and a very talented wide receiver in Christian Rodriguez and a talented running back in Daniel Baker. Centerville, big guys, big offensive linemen. They always give the other powerhouses a run for their money. Whether they can overcome that kind of like the big game hurdle that they have trouble with, we'll see. And then Herndon, a lot of improvement from that program as well. They finished last season with a big win over Oakton. Can they have that carryover effect into 2008?
All right, well, thanks, guys. Of course, our FSN game of the week, we will be broadcasting this week, Oakton and Madison, so feel free to tune in, watch that game. It's going to be a very big one in the region, along, of course, with the West Springfield-Stonebridge matchup. But all right, so there you have it. There is your fall football preview. Now, last but not least, let's talk a little bit about cross country, the runners who've been out there. I have my top 8 guys to watch. Chris Foley from Chantilly leading off the list. And then the Degfay twins from Edison, Liule and Tute Degfay. Kevin Dowd from Fairfax coming into his junior season. Nate Degu from Lee. The Hendricks twins from Oakton. And then finishing up Alex Whitco from Thomas Jefferson's state championship team. So let me break it down a little bit with these guys. I think the favorites right now for the guys have to be, of course, Brian Hendricks from Oakton. Joe LaRusso has graduated. I think the mantle is his to take. People very impressed with Kevin Dowd last year. He made it to the States as a sophomore. And then you can't say enough good things about the Degfay twins. They were both 1-2 in the National District last year. Both competed at states. And one thing I love about them, their PRs only 12 seconds apart. So a good, probably friendly rivalry there with the Degfay twins. Lots of very exciting runners to watch, and one I'm very excited about. Many people in the region may not have heard of him yet, but it's Nate Degu from Lee High School. I talked with his coach, Barry Mensch, about him. He's here from Ethiopia by way of Minnesota to the northern region. They recently competed against Chantilly at a scrimmage, and he was second to Chris Foley, so a lot of people think that Nate Degu is one to watch in the region. He's a junior, so he's got a couple more years. Very excited over at Lee High School about him. So those are the guys. I think that Thomas Jefferson has a chance to repeat in the region, and of course Oakton, you have to think that they've got a shot at the region as well, particularly because Dante Morales from Fairfax has moved over to Oakton, so that's 3 people right at the top there for the guys. All right, now let's take a look at the ladies, my top 8 girls in the region. Starting off, no surprise there, Leah Valentin from Chantilly, followed by Frankie Dowd from Fairfax, and then Haruni Wijanaratne. I know everyone in the region knew she would be on our list from Herndon. Liana Epstein from Lake Braddock, always a strong Lake Braddock girls program over there. Madeline Wilner from South County. 2 girls from Thomas Jefferson, Lisa Junta and Stephanie Marzin, both sophomores. They were sensational freshmen from that Thomas Jefferson team. And then Alex, we have with there, but it's actually Alex Watt from West Springfield. So sorry about that, Alex, that we got your name misspelled there. But so let's talk a little bit about the girls, because I really think that this is going to be quite a battle this year between Harune and Leah from Chantilly. Haruni, of course, won the 3,200 at the Outdoor State Track and Field Championships back in the spring, and she made it look completely effortless. So I think a lot of people have her as the one to beat. But of course, everyone in the region knows Leah DeValentine, such a strong runner. She was the Concorde District, one of their best runners last year, followed very closely by Frankie Dowd, who finished second in the Concorde District last year. And then I think the girls team, that's really the girls team to beat, is Lake Braddock. They're just so deep this year, and so they've got a lot of good runners. And then, of course, the freshmen from Thomas Jefferson. So there is your cross-country breakdown. So guys, any parting shots?
Well, just to go over the cross-country there, Mike Mangan, every year Lake Braddock is always the team to beat out of the Patriot District, and a lot of times in the region as well. And I know we're not supposed to root for anybody on the show, but I am rooting for Leah DeValentine. The year she had last year, I mean, just fantastic. Then she gets to the state tournament, both in cross-country and indoor track, and gets edged out at the line, loses the state title by just seconds in each race. Just totally heartbreaking. One of the nicest athletes that I've covered in my time around here. So I'll be pulling for her to finally get the state title this year after the 2 disappointing races she had last year.
Well, and I talked with her coach, Matt Gilchrist, about her. He says she's healthy. She's looking to have a senior standout season. And so, yeah, how could you not root for Leah DeValentine? But Wynn, any parting shots?
I agree with both of y'all.
Well, fantastic. But yes, cross country is certainly always very exciting in the region. Lots of great meets coming up, and so we'll keep our eyes on which of the players there are to watch and the runners there are to watch. And so in Thomas Jefferson, I didn't really get to rank out the teams amongst the girls, so I'll do that really quickly. As I said, Lake Braddock is the team to beat, and then there's Herndon. I think Langley, I didn't have any of their runners in my top 8 there, but Langley always has a very strong team as well. So I think look for them, look for Robinson, but cross country going to be very exciting this year. All right, well, so we have laid it out there for you. As I said, please join us for our game of the week, Madison and Oakton. We are going to be taking the week off next week for the Labor Day holiday, but we'll be back the week after that for some news and notes and to tell you what's happened in week 1 and week 2 in the region. But we really appreciate you guys joining us here tonight. Have a safe Labor Day weekend, and as always, please join us again. We are on the web, so while we're gone next week, you can still read articles, player profiles, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. We have a new website, so if you're familiar with our website, go and check out what all we've done now. We have video, we have articles, and of course, again, special thanks to our teammates, CCI Screen Printing, for all your screen printing needs. Again, 703-978-0257. All right, well, that's it from us here in the studio. Please join us again in 2 weeks. Thanks, guys.